do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
We do.
Okay, you may all be seated. At this time, the state may call their next witness.
Brent Becker.
All right, Mr. Becker, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have my clerk swear you.
Please raise your right
Yes,
hand.
ma'am.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Brent Becker, B-R-E-N-T-B-E-C-K-E-R.
Thank you.
All
Sir,
right, you may- Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, you're retired these days.
retired.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what'd you do for a living before you retired?
I was a police officer for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
And how long what years were you with Metro?
What years were you with Metro?
I was there from 1984 to 2011.
And in September of 1996, what was your assignment?
I was a detective with the homicide section.
Do you recall how long you'd been with homicide when you, in 1996?
I got into homicide, I think it was November of 1994.
Did you have a partner in 96?
Yes, it was Mike Franks,
And who was
Who
your
was your
sergeant?
sergeant?
Kevin Manning.
Sorry. Oh, he's gonna, hold on a second, all right, he's gonna work on the echo. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On September 7th, or into, I guess, technically into September 8th of 1996, did you get called out for a shooting that happened, ultimately determined to be happened at Flamingo and Cobalt?
Yes, Sergeant Manning called me. It was about 12:30 in the morning, and I was asleep, so it would have been September 8th. And so it was around 12:30. So by the time I got up, got dressed, and got there, it was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning on the 8th.
And when you say you got there, what scene did you go to?
Initially, from what I recall, I went to Harmon in the Boulevard because that's where general assignment and everybody was at to get debriefed on things and get some of the notes. And then from what I recall, I went over to Flamingo and Cobalt to kind of look at the scene, but they had some witnesses from the car that supposedly was directly behind Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur back at Harmon and the Boulevard that I needed to interview.
Can we talk a little bit, first of all, Tupac Shakur is still alive on September 8th of 1996, correct?
That's what I was told. He had already been transported. He was not at the scene when I got there.
Is it somewhat unusual for homicide to be involved in a situation where there isn't a deceased victim yet?
That was very unusual, and normally we don't get called out, at least at that time, we didn't get called out unless there was a deceased victim. So it was unusual. I think when we arrived at the scene, we were told that because of the nature of who the victim was, general assignment wanted us to come out to it.
Let me ask you, we've heard from a first responder today. Back in those days, what was general assignment? What does that mean?
General assignment was in essence, the night detectives. They worked swing shift and graveyard shift. So they were the night detectives that if something needed a detective to respond, they were the ones that got called out to the scene.
So they would have been at this scene before you, and then they made a determination along with, I assume, the the command staff that homicide should be called out to this investigation.
Correct. Actually, uniformed officers would have been the first people called to the scene of anything. And General Simon, I'm sure, was monitoring the traffic. So if they had heard the call, they may have been responding, but they would have gone out, assessed the scene, and eventually determined if someone, the type of scene it was and if someone needed to come out to it. And in this case, I guess someone must have called Sergeant Manning because he's the one that called us.
And your partner, Detective Franks, do you recall where he responded to?
I believe he got sent directly to University Medical Center, the hospital, which is where Shakur and I believe Suge Knight got sent to.
And your responsibility, was there also crime scene analysts that were called up to the scene?
Yeah, my initial response was to the scene to start handling things directly at the crime scene, yes.
And then does at some point crime scene analyst Dan Ford show up and document the scene while you're present?
Dan Ford was already there from what I recall. They were called CSAs back then, I believe. Dan Ford would have already been there. Usually CSAs, because CSAs were assigned to each shift. So I'm pretty sure he was that particular shift CSA. He would have already been out there doing whatever he did for the scene, marking it, taking photographs and such.
When you, at the end of sort of both the two scene investigations, so the Harmon and Las Vegas Boulevard, as well as the Flamingo and Koval investigation, essentially, what was the facts you were dealing with?
Well, according to the witnesses that I had interviewed, Frank Alexander, Malcolm Greenidge, Katari Cox, and Yafu Fula, and I'm just doing what I remember the pronunciation was. They were in the car behind Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur. And what they described was that a white car, and from what I recall, they described a white Cadillac pulling up alongside Knight's car, and someone inside that white Cadillac opening fire or shooting into the car that Knight and Shakur were at. Their descriptions varied a little bit, but from what I recall, I believe they all said it was a white car and more or less agreed that it was a Cadillac. And there might have been a little bit of a variance between 2 and 4 occupants.
And what direction after the shooting does the vehicle head?
After the shooting, it would have turned south on Koval. That was at Flamingo and Koval, because the Knight group was heading eastbound on Flamingo, and the Cadillac would have originally been heading eastbound, but then it turned southbound on Koval.
And the nature of the bullet holes that are in the BMW that's located at Harmon and Las Vegas Boulevard, all those bullets appear to be coming in from the passenger side of the BMW? The impact strikes that I saw were all on the right rear passenger door, the right front door, or the right front passenger door. I believe there was some sort of a mark or impact on the windshield. Those were the strikes that you could see. It was you couldn't tell if anything had been a stray of any kind. So, at your scene, you have bullets being shot from south to north into the passenger side of Suge and Tupac's car, but you have no idea how many actual bullets are fired because you can only see the strikes which are in the car.
Correct. All I can see is what the actual impacts are. That doesn't mean that's how many shots were fired. That's just how many struck the vehicle.
And I think we have another witness who's going to testify to this later, but there are a number of casings, or cartridge cases, expended cartridge cases, that ultimately get collected from the southbound lanes of Flamingo right before Koval. Is that correct?
Yes, without seeing the report, I know that there were fired cartridge cases recovered from the street. I do recall that the number of fired cartridge cases recovered from the street did not match the number of impact strikes on the vehicle, which wouldn't have been surprising considering what traffic probably was on Flamingo on a Saturday night and probably the delay of anybody arriving there, at least from law enforcement.
What happens when, in your experience as a detective, there's a bunch of cartridge cases laying in a busy street and cars driving through? What can happen to those cartridge cases?
Well, especially prior to the uniform officers getting there, cars are driving over them. They're either getting caught within the tread of the tires, or they're getting thrown down the street or thrown into a rain gutter, or, I mean, they could go a lot of different places. We've investigated numerous shootings within streets where you've had fired cartridge cases scattered all over the place. And you never know for sure if you've got all of them, because if something gets caught within a tread of a tire and it doesn't get ejected, unless someone tells you about it later or it gets ejected somewhere else, who knows where it ends up.
In addition to that, when you have your shooter inside a vehicle, are there times that you found casings have gone into the vehicle that the shooter's shooting from?
Yeah, that would depend on if the shots were fired with the handgun inside the window of the car, or if the handgun was outside of the window. Obviously, if the handgun is outside of the window, there's a higher probability. If it's a semi-automatic pistol, there's a higher probability that all those fired cartridge cases ended up outside. If the handgun is on the inside of the vehicle, you have a higher probability of some fired cartridge cases ended up staying inside the car. If it's a revolver, then everything is going to stay within the handgun.
Eventually, I'm kind of jumping forward here, do you have those casings forensically tested?
The firearms examiner ends up testing them. I believe they were able to determine that they thought a Glock, it was going to be a .40 caliber. They were able to determine the caliber. And I believe, because I guess I'm not the expert, the firearms people are, but that a Glock has a particular marking that shows up, and I believe they determined that they thought it was a Glock that fired the weapon, that fired the cartridge cases.
So now you're looking for a white Cadillac occupied somewhere between 2 and 4 times, heading south on Koval, and a Glock 40 caliber firearm.
That was the information we had eventually at the time, yes.
After speaking to the witnesses, did you have any suspect information?
The only thing we had was 2 to 4 people, probably already all black males. The shooter, all we had was a black arm. There was a question of whether it was out the driver's door window or out the back window. There was a lot of questions. And this was strictly coming from the 4 gentlemen, Alexander, Greenidge, Cox, and Fula, from the car that was behind them. You got to realize, as I learned later, there was an entire convoy or entourage, whatever you want to call it, that had been behind them. and none of those people were around. Everybody had skedaddled before we got there, or at least by the time I got there. And so the only information we had was what General Assignment had acquired from, I believe, a couple of witnesses that they had talked to, and some of the people at the scene. I think Detective Franks talked to some girls later on that had been at the scene.
Now, during the course of this, you've mentioned Frank Alexander. Do you know what Frank Alexander's responsibility was that night in the car behind Suge and Tupac?
Frank Alexander said he was Tupac Shakur's bodyguard.
And Yafula, I'm not even going to say his name right either.
Fula and Greenidge and Qatari Cox were supposed to be part of the Outlaws. I guess it's like the group, the I don't know if you call them the band, but the part of the group that performed with Tupac Shakur.
And those are the only four that stuck around by the time you got there and you were able to take statements from.
I believe they were the only four, plus I know there were a couple other guys that are mentioned in the report. I think Kevin Woods was one of them, and I think they must have got stopped by General Assignment or somebody when Suge Knight had made the U-turn to flee or drive away and ended up at Harmon and the Boulevard. Everybody else was gone.
I want to fast forward a little bit. Did you learn of an incident that occurred at the MGM casino shortly after the Tyson-Selden fight?
We eventually learned that. No one claimed that night, but yes, there was a videotape that came about and information about a fight that was caught on videotape where a person was kicked, beaten down by Suge Knight and a bunch of other people in that group. Tupac Shakur was in the group, and Frank Alexander was off in the side.
When you learned about that, did Metro initially know the identity of the victim of that beating?
The only thing we had, I believe, was the first name of Orlando. One of the officers that was at the fight that night, I think they were working off duty, because we also saw some video where they had talked to the person. He was wearing a football jersey, and I don't believe there was a written down ID where the ID was obtained, but the first name of Orlando was on there. That was all we had at that time.
Did you make efforts to talk to Suge Knight?
I know that night at the hospital, Detective Franks attempted to, he said, and then I know that for 2 to 3 days after that, we attempted to, and finally were able to get him in and conduct an interview with him.
How did that come about? How does Suge Knight wind up at Metro?
Well, the first couple of attempts weren't very successful, put it this way. He didn't come in. In fact, I think the one time he was supposed to come in, he didn't show up. And then the night he did, I think it was 3 nights after, it would be in the report. When he did arrive, he showed up with David Kenner, David Chesnoff, and George Kalisis, who were all 3 attorneys, who were his representatives, which we thought was weird because Suge Knight was a victim. And I think Reggie Wright Jr. might have been out in the lobby waiting. And then that's when we were finally able to conduct a taped interview of Suge Knight with his 3 attorneys present.
And what were your impressions from that interview?
Suge Knight was not the Suge Knight I expected. Everything we had done a lot of research in the short time we had been involved, and Suge Knight was not a very timid person in the previous interviews we had seen of him. He was a very boisterous, in charge kind of guy. He was very timid, and to us, his interview was very practiced, and he was very timid, and I thought he lied to us. He just didn't know anything.
Your impression was he was withholding information about what happened.
He just basically said he didn't know anything. Couldn't recognize anybody.
A few days, or maybe a week even, does there come a point in time when you get contacted by law enforcement in Los Angeles area, whether it be LAPD, LASO, or Compton PD, that assists you in your investigation?
Tupac Shakur passed away on September 13th. We attended the autopsy, and we were later contacted. Well, I think there was probably some contact with other people within the homicide section. You got to realize there are people higher up than us, but eventually Tim Brennan from Compton PD, I think a Mike Coet, and Fontenot, something like that from Los Angeles County Sheriff's came down to exchange information, and that's when we showed them the videotape from the MGM.
And once you showed them the videotape from the MGM, were they able to identify for you, first of all, who Orlando was?
They immediately recognized Orlando Anderson. They told us that's Orlando Anderson.
And do they also identify some of the people that are with Suge that you didn't know might have been with Suge?
They recognized Suge Knight. I think they did by monikers, if I remember right. There might have been names. I think Buntry was in the picture, a guy named Buntry. There may have been some others that would have, again, it would be on the report because we did document all this.
Does Trayvon Lane sound familiar to you?
Yes, Trayvon Lane does sound familiar.
What about Neckbone?
They ended up identifying a bunch of people because we ended up getting a substantial amount of information from them.
Does there come a point in time when they let you know that basically there's something happening in Compton that might be really indicative of who may have killed Tupac?
Well, we learned that they had had a series of shootings occurring in Compton, and we're getting a lot of information from informants that was interesting to us. The problem was it was all from informants. We didn't have any actual people that would come forward and testify. So it was information we could use, but we didn't have any witnesses that would be willing to talk to us. It was all hearsay for us.
And before I get too far into the time you go to Compton the first time, were you able to identify that Suge Knight, Tupac Shakur, and their entourage was staying at the Luxor?
Well, yeah, we knew that after the beatdown at the MGM, they had all gone because the MGM security had videotaped or filmed the group going through the casino and exiting, and we got information that they went over to the Luxor where they had rooms because we observed or saw some videotape down in the valet area after they had changed clothes. and were meeting down there for some vehicles where they had left to go to Suge Knight's house there in Las Vegas.
Judge, I have in my hand a certified record from Luxor of the reservations as 124. I'd offer it.
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
So you mentioned something that I guess I should get to. Suge and Tupac's group leave the MGM, go to the Luxor, and then did you have law enforcement outside, not for this purpose, but did you have law enforcement working security near Suge Knight's house here in Las Vegas?
We did not, homicide did not. Apparently there was an off-duty assignment at Suge Knight's community. I guess it's a gated community is where his house was at. And they were working off duty because of whatever the event was.
And so did you learn that after the Luxor they went over to Suge's house?
Yes, we learned that they went over there. There was, I think, a gate log or something, and we learned that several people had gone over there, gone inside, and we eventually acquired that gate log. And then sometime after they had arrived at the house there, they departed, and
That's when the incident occurs.
that's not long after that is when the incident occurred.
All right, let me get back to Compton. At some point, you get told that the Compton Police Department is going to execute search warrants on all of the Mob Piru and Southside Crip residences that they could identify as part of their investigation into the ongoing war now that's happening between Mob Piru and the Southside Crips.
It was kind of twofold. We were told that they were serving search warrants on all these locations for these different groups or gangs, but that there was also at least one murder warrant for Orlando Anderson that they had there in Compton. So it was our understanding that they were going to be arresting him on an outstanding murder warrant there in Compton.
Were you present in Compton when those warrants were executed?
Mike Franks and I did travel down and were present to witness the search warrants being served by Compton and I believe the I don't know if the Los Angeles County Sheriffs participated, the actual deputies. I know that their jail facility people were there.
And you talked about this before. That warrant, had you seen a copy of the affidavit for that warrant?
Yeah, I saw one way back in '96, and I think I've seen one here recently that you showed me that kind of refreshed my memory.
And within that, all of the witnesses are identified as CRIs. Do you know what they were calling CRIs?
What I was told is that it was called a confidential, reliable informant. I don't recall any person being named as a testifying witness to anything. It was all based on confidential, reliable informants that the search warrant was being based on, which I guess in some cases that's not unusual. I know narcotics cases do that quite often, but eventually if you're going to successfully prosecute a case, you need to have somebody willing to testify.
So on October 2nd of 1996, were you present on Burris Ave when Orlando Anderson's residence was, when the police hit it and searched that residence?
I can't tell you if it was Burris Avenue. I remember being somewhere where Orlando Anderson was arrested, yes.
And during that, did you find out information as to where Orlando Anderson was staying when he was in Las Vegas?
Well, yeah, we kind of had an idea before that, but then when he was arrested, we kind of confirmed it that he had been staying at the Excalibur Hotel. We knew he'd been in Vegas because we had him on videotape, but yes.
Judge, I have in my hand state's proposed exhibit number 125, which is a certified copy of, or it's a certified record of the Excalibur. I offer it at this time.
You want to make your approach?
Yes. That will be a minute.
Okay, now I'm going to try my best here to share my screen with you and see if we can. I want to show you just one little portion of this particular record. Oh. All right, share screen. I guess I should have it up. All right. Are you seeing my screen at all?
I see you. I don't see the document. Oh, wait a minute. It just flipped.
You see that document now?
Okay, yeah, I do see a document. It's a affidavit of custodian of records.
Okay. I'm going to roll down here to page 2.
Okay, it's a receipt from Excalibur.
And then I'm going to zoom in here, maybe. Oh, that's the search button. Is this going to let me zoom in here? There we go.
I see some writing down there. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
right.
it zoomed.
Yeah, I'm just going to get to that writing now that I've zoomed in.
Okay.
So on page
All right.
2 here, there's
I
some
see.
handwriting on there.
That's the Stardust and Monte Carlo.
You recognize that handwriting?
That's my handwriting.
So how does that handwriting wind up on this record? What do you do?
Well, without seeing a report, I wrote it on there. There's no doubt that I wrote it on there. The question is why I wrote it on there. It's dated September 8th. Says they're local calls, and I put Stardust for one phone number, and then the Monte Carlo for the other phone number.
Does that suggest to you you were looking to see who Orlando Anderson, what other hotels he was calling?
I'm wanting to see what the phone calls are, and the Stardust call is at 9:41. It should be 9 if it's correct. 0941 is 9:41 a.m. and then Monte Carlo is at 0946, and then right after that is the Stardust again at 0947 again.
Now, there's been some discussions, and I guess we'll get to that when we get a little bit farther, but why don't we address some of that now? Was there a problem at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department of information related to your investigation being leaked publicly?
Well, I became aware that there may have been some information being leaked. I couldn't say who specifically was doing it, but I was becoming concerned to the point that in our office we had shelves not behind my desk, but there were some shelves where a lot of the case files were stored. And once this case continued and the nature of who the victim was, especially when he passed away, there seemed to be a lot of interest in it, outside interest, especially with the media. And I became concerned about it, so I started locking my case files in my desk because I didn't want them to be available. Because I had left things on my desk, and a couple times I had found things different than when I left them, and it just bothered me. So that's why I locked them up.
Did there come a point in time when you started saving your reports to a different type of medium than just the computer?
Well, yes, there were some reports that I ended up not sending off to records because I was putting them on what we had then was called a floppy disk. I guess today they've got a lot different technology, but back then we had a thing called a floppy disk. Because we actually did some reports early on that I still don't know where they are. We did a pen register early on that I guess nobody can find. We went looking for a vehicle on another guy that nobody can find. There's just a lot of things that disappeared. And some of them are reports that were before I even put them on floppy disk. So yes, I had some concerns.
Were you aware that some Metro employees sold a Polaroid of Tupac on the autopsy table to the Daily Mail?
I was after we did the autopsy, I was outside the autopsy room. I cannot say that I saw a person take the Polaroid photo of Tupac Shakur's body. I saw somebody walk into the autopsy room where his body was at with a Polaroid. And then I don't remember how long after that a book was published by a Kathy Scott that it was a Polaroid photo of his body. It wasn't one of our photos of his body from the autopsy. It was quite obvious it was a Polaroid photo afterwards because it was not a photograph that we took. We didn't take those kind of photographs at an autopsy. We had no reason to.
But needless to say, you yourself had concerns about the security of the information as it relates to the investigation.
Yes.
Now, going back to exhibit number 125, it says on September 8th at 9:46 a.m., it appears the Monte Carlo was called, correct?
Correct.
And, Judge, I have marked State's proposed exhibit number 126, which is a certified copy of a record from the Monte Carlo I'd offer.
Any objection?
If I can have a moment, please.
Yeah. Okay, they'll be in minutes.
All right, Detective, I'm going to try and do this. Change the screen for you and now put 126 up on the screen. Ooh. Apparently screen sharing has stopped. Let me put it up first and then... Now I gotta go back to you and hit share. Can you see that now?
Now I do. There's a little delay, but it's a affidavit of custodian of records again.
Now this is the Monte Carlo, and I'm going to jump down to the first page. There's a
Okay.
name, Corey Edwards, at
Corey Edwards.
1301 East Sloan.
Okay.
And it looks like he arrived and departed the Friday night before, the Friday the 6th into Saturday the 7th of September of 96. You see that on the right side?
I see that.
And I'm going to roll down here, a few pages in. Do you see? I could zoom in a little bit here for you.
No, I can see the writing. The Excalibur. Well, go back.
Yeah, I gotta go back.
It zoomed too much.
There you go.
Okay, it's Excalibur, Sahara, and Luxor. Though that's my handwriting.
And so, does that suggest to you that you took this record and checked to see
Where are those phone numbers?
the local
Yes.
phone numbers that are being called on it? And I'm going to roll down.
Yes. So the Excalibur was September 7th at 10:01 a.m. Sahara, September 7th at 10:26, and Luxor was at September 7th at 10:32 a.m.
Now, initially, did you have any idea who Corey Edwards was?
I did not have Corey Edwards' name until Compton gave us that name.
So now you're in Compton. You've executed search warrants. You learn about the Excalibur. You learn about the Monte Carlo and Corey Edwards. I want to kind of fast forward now. Well, you mentioned something about a pen register. Does there come a point in time when you guys learn about an individual by the name of David Keefe that might have worked at the MGM?
Yes, we learned about him. Well, it would have been related to the pen register because it goes back to, I want to say, Yafu Fula's description when I took his statement. He gave a description that I recall. He described the driver of the Cadillac having a bitch face. That's the term he used. And I may have misunderstood the terminology at the time. I might have thought bitch face meaning a younger looking face at the time, because there were some names coming up, and we had developed a name of Davion Brooks, who apparently was a Southside Compton Crip. And he was a fair-skinned black male, and we thought he kind of was a bitch face. And he was the person that the pen register was related to in a place. It was south. I can't tell you the address right off the bat. It was south of Tropicana between the Boulevard and Koval. Because all we had, I think, was a cell phone or something, and we did the pen register, but David Keith's name came up somehow in that as a worker in Las Vegas. And for some reason, I'm going off the top of my head without the reports. He had I thought a full-size Blazer, because I used to own a full-size Blazer, and there was an address in Las Vegas and I know we went out and checked that address, but it turned out nothing was there. We couldn't determine anything. But that's how that all came about, David Keefe. And I know that we ended up, because we couldn't find Davion Brooks, that at the time, I don't know what they got now, we had a thing called Scope, which you could the people would get their sheriff's cards or criminal history would go in there, and we could flag a person. So if they were stopped by officers or arrested, that we could be notified. And so we had flagged Davion Brooks, and I believe eventually we must have been down because I was out of town, but Mike Franks and Kevin Manning went and interviewed him.
So at this point, we have the names of Orlando Anderson, you have the name of Corey Edwards, you have the name of Davion Brooks, you have the name of Davion Keith. Kind of fast forward, but in November of 96, well, let me ask you this. Of all the people you interviewed in that car behind, was there anybody who said he thought he could make an identification?
Yafu Fula, from what I remember, thought he could ID someone possibly. I thought it was the driver, but I'd have to look at the report. He's the only person that thought they could possibly identify someone. I don't recall anybody saying they could ID the shooter. Frank Alexander, Malcolm Greenidge, and Katari Cox were more or less more of the dark arm kind of thing.
When in November of 96 in New Jersey, does something happen to Yafula?
Unfortunately, Yafu Fula was murdered. We were notified, I want to say it was Orange, New Jersey, somewhere in that area. We learned that Yafu Fula had been murdered. This was after we had made several attempts because Death Row Records, David Kenner, who was the attorney, they had told us that if we needed to talk to anybody from the Outlaws or anybody, that we needed to contact them to make arrangements. And somewhere in the reports that there's several attempts were made to try to get a hold of Yafu Fula, and we got the runaround on that.
I want to fast forward to March 9th of 1997. Did you become aware that another famous rapper by the name of Christopher Wallace, also known as Biggie Smalls, also known as Notorious B.I.G., was killed outside the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles?
Yes.
And LAPD was responsible for that investigation.
Correct.
At some point, do you have contact with Fred Miller, one of the lead detectives from LAPD?
Yes.
And then shortly thereafter, March 17th or so, did you attempt to contact, well, let me ask you this, did you contact Frank Alexander to do photo lineups?
Yes. Mike Franks and I went down and we met Frank Alexander. If that's what the report said, it was around March 17th down in Orange County somewhere, California. And I had taken probably, I think it was 10 photo lineups that we had prepared because I had since the shooting and all, Frank had kind of turned around. I think he had gone cross with Death Row Records and things turned around and he was willing to meet with us, and that's when I showed him the photo lineups.
Judge and I talked to Mr. Samp about not having to lay the foundation with each one of these with Mr. Samp, but I have in my hand those 10 photo lineups, which are marked 76 through 85.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection to admission?
Yes.
All right, they'll be admitted then.
And I'm going to start with number 10, which is 85. Oops. I have to go in and out here a few times. But each of these photo lineups that you have done here, did you have a reason why you had these particular people in photo lineups?
Main players that were in these photo lineups were, well, obviously Orlando Anderson was in there because of the beatdown at the MGM. I mean, and because of the information we'd acquired from Compton. Then the other people, I think Darnell Brim might have been in one of those because his name had come up. Duane Davis's name was in there. Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith. There's another Davis. I think it's Duane Davis's brother, or he's related to him somehow. Is it Kevin Davis? I think.
Let me just share my screen and we'll go through each one by one. Okay.
Yeah. I just remember there were 10 of them, and there was each person that was in the lineup. There was a reason for them being in there, just to cover our bases. We had particular people we were looking at, but we wanted to cover the basis of everybody that had come up.
So on these lineups, this is page 1, page 2, and then on the bottom, page 3 has the names of the people that are in each of those positions. Is that fair?
Those were the lineup records, yes.
And so it shows on March 17th of 1997, you would have created the photo lineup record that's your name down there.
Yes.
And this one, the suspect is number 6, Duane Davis.
Yeah, and I guess I probably spelled his name wrong.
And if we go to picture number 6,
That's Duane Davis. He's younger. I mean, obviously, it's been a long
30
time.
years ago, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Now, at this point in time, when you're showing these photo lineups, did you have a theory as to who was in this vehicle?
We had an idea from information. We didn't have anybody stepping forward to say anything in particular.
Okay. And who was it? Who did you think was in the car?
Well, the 4 names that we were leaning on was Duane Davis, Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson. Those were the names that we'd been leaning on. But again, those are just the names we had.
Right. You had no live witness to tell you.
No.
You all had confidential, reliable, the CRI that
we personally didn't even have that. I mean, I guess everybody else did, but we didn't have a name that would step forward to say anything. And I believe the CRIs were even throwing out Darnell Brim and other people.
I'm going to kind of go through each one of these, but there's one I want to show you, and you've looked at these 10 photo lineups recently, right?
Correct.
And then there's another 6 photo lineups that you have where there's just a handwritten log that goes with them, right?
Yeah, and after looking at those, I'm wondering if those are photo lineups that I did later, because the 4 girls that I think Mike interviewed that night at the shooting scene, I had attempted to get in touch with them, and I think I talked to a couple of them, and 1 or 2 of them lived in the LA area, and I think it was LAPD, we had sent some lineups to them to look at. Those might have been the lineups we sent to them, actually, because it was, 97 or 98? And I think technology might have got a little better by then.
So let me click out here. Judge, I have in my hand the log of 86, and then State Proposed Exhibits 87 through 91, which are the other 6 lineups. 5 lineups, excuse me.
No objection. I'm sorry, Your Honor. No objection.
They'll be made.
So let me start with the log for you. And then we're going to go back to the other ones for just a minute, but let me pull up the log first. Oops. I'm sure there's more technologically advanced if you were younger. If I were younger, we could figure out how to do this easier, but
You're doing better than me, so.
these are the logs. This is the logs you wrote for each one of those lineups, right? So you had Orlando Anderson in one, Darnell Brim in another, Roger.
These are probably notes that I wrote down because we were just trying to put something together to send off. Because I'm seeing, well, Roger Williams would have been, wasn't a Southside Crip, from what I remember. He was a mob guy or something. He was the opposite of everybody else.
Roger Williams, do you recall his nickname being Neckbone?
Yes, because I think we got to talk to him briefly down in Compton.
The name Jerry Bonds was the name that was
Jerry-
coming up?
Jerry Bonds was a name that came up very, very early on. And I think Compton had it. And as time went on, Jerry Bonds' name kind of was fading out. I think he's a South Side Compton Crip, but as things went on, his name just started disappearing, even from the informants.
And then the last one on there is Big Dre or DeAndre Smith.
DeAndre Smith, who is the guy that we think was in the back seat with Orlando Anderson.
Now I'm going to go to the DeAndre Smith photo lineup, and that's 91. And he'd be in position number 3, correct? Oh wait, you
guess
can't
so.
see it. I didn't share it with you yet.
Nothing's popped up yet, so.
Let me share it with you. But if your log has him in position number 3, that'd be him in number 3, correct?
Looking at it, yeah, that face kind of looks familiar. And that number 15 would be my writing. So this is one of the later photos. Yes. And this this is definitely one of the later photos. This is one we had early on.
So now I want to go to photo lineup that you wrote as number 1, which is State's Exhibit number 76. Can't believe I have to stop the share every time, but I'm going to zoom in here on number 2 and then share it with you here. Maybe. The person there in number 2, that appears to be DeAndre Smith, correct?
Yes. That's probably an early photo because what I'm looking at, I think, is probably, I don't know if those were California DMV photos or what, because from what I recall, we had to cut the pictures out because the backgrounds were all different colors, and we were trying not to make different colors on the photo lineup so we didn't come into conflict down the road with anybody. I think Mr. Samp would agree. If you have a yellow, red, blue, that causes issues. So that's why we did this. And this is all we had that was available at the time.
So I want to roll down here. The weird thing about this record is
Number 6 didn't have a name.
number 6 didn't have a name, but also number 2, even though it's a picture of DeAndre Smith, the record you have written is Andre Norton. Is that possibly an AKA for Mr. Smith?
Probably. We're talking what, 97? Yeah. Andre Norton, I'd have to look at his rap sheet. I don't know. But because there's no ID number over there, that's probably what it is. Because usually if there's an ID number, that's a Metro thing. And DeAndre Smith, whatever, wouldn't have had anything, because I don't think he had a history with Las Vegas.
Now, as I go through each of these photo lineups that you have, let's go to number 2, which is State's Exhibit number 77. And we roll down here. Well, I guess I should share it for you so you know what I'm talking about. We roll down here, and position number 3 is Orlando Anderson. Is that right?
Okay, you're right.
And position number 3 is Orlando.
Yes, that's Orlando. He had a pretty recognizable face. And again, that would have been a similar deal where the backgrounds were all different colors, so that's why we had to cut him out.
I'm going to share with you 78. And then show you down at the bottom. Darnell Bren's in position number 1.
Yeah, when I saw the picture, it looked like him up in the, something about the faces that kind of remember.
But that'd
Yeah.
be Darnell Bren.
That would be Darnell Brim.
Let's go to number 4. And if we roll down here, position number 5 would be Jerry Bonds. And if we roll up here, in position number 5 we have Jerry Bonds.
Correct. Yes. Okay.
Number 5. Number 5, we roll down to the bottom, which is State's Exhibit number 80.
That's Davion Brooks. Yeah.
Davion Brooks in position number 5, and if we roll up here, that's Davion Brooks in position number 5.
Yeah.
And that's the potentially young kid, based upon what Yafula said, that caused you guys to do the pen and all those other things.
He's the guy we did the pen register on. Yes.
Number 6. Oops. And this will be State's Exhibit number 81. I gotta share it with you. We roll down here. David Keefe is in position number 1, and so that would be David Keefe.
Yes. And the reason we put the tape on there is I think those were probably ID numbers or something. So we were again trying not to create problems with the different booking photos or something. And I don't know if this was a booking thing or a sheriff's card, but we just covered them up to lessen the conflict.
You learned during the course of your investigation that Mr. Keith worked at the MGM, which meant he must have a work card, ergo he must have a photo.
At a minimum, he had to have a work card, yes.
Hold the next one. Oops. Number 82. Go. We roll down 82, and in spot number 5 is Kevin Davis.
Kevin Davis, yeah.
And number 5 is a photograph of Kevin Davis.
Okay, yes.
And your understanding is that Mr. Davis, Kevin Davis, is Duane Davis's brother.
I think that's what it was. I knew he was a relative. For some reason, I thought they were brothers.
Do you recall a point in time when a .40 caliber Glock was found on Mr. Davis?
I don't remember if it was on him. There's 2 firearms that I can recall. I know that Mike Coette from the LA County Sheriff's Office had a firearm. If that was on him, then that would be it. He mentioned a Glock 40, and I had him enter those cartridges into what we had was drug fire then. I don't know if they still have it. And then I had our firearms people do the comparison on that.
And ultimately, that wasn't your murder weapon.
The firearms examiner said it was not the weapon.
And so, drug fire, which is, I think, the jury will hear later, is now called NIBIN. But drug fire was a way for photographs of casings to be put into a computer, and then somebody somewhere else could check casings that were found and see if they matched the same gun, casing to casing.
Yeah, the forensics guys that do all those firearms things, they know how to do all that stuff. All I know is if I get the information, I ask the people to enter it in to drug fire at the time, and then those firearms people know what to do. I depend on them.
So we only got 2 more here. Let's do your number 8, which is going to be my 83. In position number 2 is Terry Brown.
Terry Brown.
You see that right there? It says Terry Brown.
I don't see the photo lineup yet. I just see the lineup record.
Yeah.
Haven't.
Terry Brown would be his photo number. Would be in position number 2, correct?
Yeah, he's going to be in number 2. Okay. And I don't. Oh, there he is.
And
Yeah.
Photo number 2 is Terrence Brown.
That's the old photo. Yes.
And then the last record I have for you, Detective. Well, I have to share my screen with you. Excuse me a second. State's Exhibit number 84. You have Corey Edwards in position 3.
Okay.
when we roll up here to position number 3, that'd be Corey Edwards.
Yeah, does he always have that beard? I don't remember. It's been so long, but yeah.
Now, when you showed Mr. Alexander these photo lineups, was he able to pick anybody out?
He said he could not.
And do you know where Mr. Alexander is today?
From what I was told, he committed suicide, so he's deceased.
Did you attempt to show those photo lineups to Malcolm Greenridge?
I think it was the next day, because what started this was a newspaper article. So we went and met Malcolm with Reggie Wright Jr. And I think I learned later, because there's a report, that there's some other guy came with him. We met them at the Compton Police Department, and we sat down with Malcolm and we offered to show him these photo lineups. And Malcolm said he never wanted to see the lineups because he said he could never identify anybody. So basically, he declined to look at the photo lineups.
You mentioned a news story. What was in the news story that caused you to think you should go probably talk to Mr. Greenridge?
There's a reporter named Chuck Phillips that was working for the LA Times at the time that was, well, that's my opinion. Anyhow, Chuck Phillips was writing an article claiming that there were 2 witnesses that the Metropolitan Police Department were refusing to talk to, Frank Alexander and Malcolm Greenidge. When we got a hold of Frank Alexander and Malcolm Greenidge, they both stated that the words that Chuck Phillips used were not their words, that they had never said those words, and that Malcolm Greenidge said he said he could never identify anybody, so he had no reason to look at the photo lineups. Frank Alexander basically said the same thing, that the story was not the way he had told it.
Now, you were a homicide detective in Las Vegas, Nevada, Clark County, right?
Correct.
This crime appears to have come from Compton and returned shortly thereafter to Compton, right? All the witnesses, everything is there, correct?
Everybody that is related to this crime that we know of is coming from California, yes.
And so, are you a peace officer in California? You got the same powers you have here in Las Vegas?
No.
And how many times did you trip to California, generally, in an effort to talk to people about this particular case?
We made 10 to 12 trips to California. Not all of those trips were with law enforcement, because there came a time where we weren't necessarily wanting to deal with law enforcement. So we went down there that many times to try and to contact different people. In fact, every time we went to California, we tried to contact Death Row Records, but got the runaround. So
ultimately, were you left with any avenue to further your investigation?
The only thing we ever got was we ended up the revocation hearing for Suge Knight, where I ended up providing a videotape of from the MGM for the DA's office down there.
Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about that. So, Suge Knight, at the time that he is involved at this fight with Orlando Anderson at the MGM, he is on probation, both federal and state probation in California, correct?
That's the way it was presented to us, yes.
And at that particular hearing, did he call a witness in his defense to claim he was trying to stop the fight?
Orlando Anderson was subpoenaed as a witness for Suge Knight, yes.
And did he testify that Suge Knight was trying to help him, not hurt him?
Orlando Anderson apparently, because I wasn't allowed in the courtroom, but apparently Orlando Anderson testified in court that day that Suge Knight was trying to help him.
And then were you the witness that laid the foundation for the videotape that disputed that testimony at that revocation hearing?
Because I had talked to Orlando Anderson in Compton the day of the search warrants, and he told me differently, I was there as an impeachment witness in case Orlando decided to tell the story that he did tell. And I testified that Orlando told me otherwise, that Suge Knight and Tupac had basically beat him down pretty good.
Thank you, sir. Judge, I pass the witness.
All right. Cross-examination, Mr. Smith.
Detective Becker, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just need to follow up with a couple things. Let me start off with this. So you talked a little bit about your powers as a police officer in Nevada. And you had mentioned that those police powers end at the border of Nevada. Is that what I heard before?
Yeah, our basic law enforcement powers are within Nevada.
And and as a result, what that means is when you enter into another state, you're technically not a police officer per se. I mean, you are a police officer, but you don't have a jurisdiction. Is that how you would frame it?
Correct. If we were, say, to want to arrest someone in another state, I mean, you could have someone arrest them, but you'd have to go through an extradition proceeding to bring someone over to Nevada. So, and that takes time. It's not like you can just go grab a guy and bring him back to Nevada.
Right. Now, in terms of your work here on this case, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on a couple things. We went through a lot of photo lineups, right?
Correct.
And you had referenced to me a little bit about the photo lineups, and fair to say, of course, as a defense attorney, you want to make sure that each photo lineup does not suggest the answer to the question, right?
Correct.
So back in those days, you're cutting pictures, you're actually cutting photographs out and just pasting them in such a way to try to eliminate backgrounds and so forth, so that the person that's looking at the photo lineup won't be suggested as to what the answer is.
That's what our attempt was, yes, sir.
Now, just for the jury's edification, when someone is being shown a photo lineup, they're in a room, they see the photo lineup, and then at that point, you wait for them to respond and see which one of the 6 people in there they recognize, right?
Well, you'd show the lineup and ask them if they recognize anybody in the lineup. You don't say who in this lineup, do you recognize? You just say, do you recognize anybody in the lineup?
Right, and the reason why you ask that question that way is you do not want to suggest an answer to your question. Or
correct. You don't want to try and make them lean towards anybody in particular.
Right, because there are instructions that are part of those photo lineups that say there may not be a person at all that we're interested in the 6 people that we present to you, right? You could have a photo lineup with nobody in it that you would have as a target. Fair?
That's a fair statement, yes, sir.
Now, in this particular regard, once a person sees who that person believes to be somebody associated with whatever investigation you're looking at, they typically would circle the picture and maybe put down a percentage of how sure they are of that person being the person that's involved in something. Is that how that works?
Yeah, typically what I would do anyhow is I'd have them initial the back of the photograph, the particular photograph of the person.
Right.
And if there was a percentage, I would have them put that on there, say at 80%, 60%, whatever that is, or 100%, whichever.
Now, of course, during this time period, as you are putting together these photo lineups, the majority of the individuals that the state identified in each photo lineup are people that are associated with Southside Crips. Would that be an accurate description?
I believe everybody was, I don't remember, was Roger Williams one of them? Because he's not a Crip. He's a Piru or mob guy. So he's a Blood.
I think
But everybody else was a Crip, yes.
right, and so because you were under the premise that there was a gang war, that the Southside Crips had actually shot at Tupac and Suge Knight because they were Piru Blood, and so you were identifying just Southside Crips and putting them into photo lineups. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, we were using Crips because that was the information. Again, we were basing a lot of things off the information we were getting from Compton.
Right, and even so, even as you're receiving this information from Compton, even as you sit here right now, sir, you weren't comfortable necessarily with all of the information you were receiving from Compton, right?
We weren't comfortable with certain things in Compton, yes.
For instance, the way they were conducting their business as law enforcement in Compton was not the way you would recommend or know that Metro would do here in Las Vegas. Fair?
We witnessed a couple of interview techniques that we weren't comfortable with, yes.
Yes, sir. Now, in addition, as you are having these photo lineups, did these photo lineups ever go to anyone back in Las Vegas? For instance, we've heard some testimony from some females that were in a vehicle, some other people maybe that would have been at the scene. Were those photo lineups ever shown to anyone that was, like the girls in the Sebring or anything like that?
That's where I'm wondering. I think there was 5 photos later on that are shown, not the original 10. I don't remember the exact number, but there are 5 later photos. And I think I mentioned it during my earlier testimony that we sent to, I believe, someone in LAPD. And I know that of the 4 girls in the Sebring, I only think 1 or 2 said they were willing to look at the photo lineups. And I think photo lineups were sent to LA so they could show them to those.
And do you recall what the results were of those photo lineups being sent to the girls in LA?
I don't believe they identified anybody.
And fair to say that in this particular regard, the photo lineup that shows Terrence Brown, no one, as far as you know, no one identified Terrence Brown as being in a vehicle, even in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996?
Yeah, if Terrence Brown was in one of those photo lineups, then he wasn't identified, correct.
How about DeAndre Smith? Was he ever identified by anybody in his photo lineup as being present in Las Vegas, Nevada on September 7th, 1996?
I don't recall anybody being identified in a photo lineup.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, sir, your testimony was that you were the primary detective on this case originally.
Myself and Mike Franks, we didn't really have a lead, but yeah.
All right. You drew the short straw basically on this one, right?
Well, I guess I'm the guy that his name is all over everything, but yeah.
Well, congratulations. Let me ask you this question though. As a police officer, did you write reports of all of your activity that you did during the course of this investigation?
Anytime we did something, I did an officer's report. I know Mike Franks did several reports too, yes. And
would there ever be a time during the time that you were handling this investigation that you would have chosen not to have written a officer's report?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
No. If we'd had a trip, especially any trip we did out of state, anything where we went out and did anything, I'd have done an officer's report. Back in the day, apparently they do things a little different. Even if it was a 1 paragrapher, we did officer's reports.
And as far as you know, based upon your knowledge of what happened to your file after you left, is the file complete in terms of your reports and what you did in this case?
When I left, it was, yes.
Is it now?
I don't know. I've never seen the case file, so I don't know what it looks like now. I've heard rumors.
Now, the district attorney's office had forwarded over to you some documents to help you with your preparation for testimony here today, right?
Correct.
Were those documents all of the officers' reports that you wrote while you were on this investigation?
No.
Now, in addition to that, sir, you had testified a little bit about the Luxor, I think. You had mentioned something about there was some information that Tupac and Suge Knight had both had rooms at the Luxor. Is that correct?
That's the information we had, yes, sir.
Okay. In addition to that, was there any video that was captured of the vehicles that had gone to the Luxor to pick up Tupac while he was at the Luxor?
I don't remember a specific video of the vehicles. I mean, there was hearsay of vehicles, but I don't remember specific videos.
Now,
Off the top of my head, I don't.
right. And because you were the lead detective, of course, you're accumulating all of the information that's being gathered, sometimes from other police officers in furtherance of your investigation, right?
Yeah, if it's given to me, yes, and it's put into the case file, yes.
Right. And so with regards to the Luxor incident, you learned and you had put into your officer's report that Tupac Shakur was picked up with some people, looks like around 10 o'clock at the ballet. Do you recall that?
And I don't think I did an officer's report reference the valet, no.
I have a document here, looks like your
Okay.
signature is at the bottom as the officer.
If you could show it to me, like I said, I've seen some documents from this that I don't recall, but if you have it, show it to me. I'd be happy. And
Do you want me to run it right over for you right now?
yeah, if you could
Kidding,
show
I'm
it to
kidding.
me.
Let me do it.
I just don't
this.
recall it.
Now, I believe that we had submitted some documents for your review as well. Do you recall the documents
Right.
that we reviewed?
I remember, because I remember you showing me a document from LA that I didn't remember too. So,
Right.
But it's
This
been a
would-
while. So
This would be titled the Murder or Attempt Murder Supplement. Do you recall that document?
okay, wait a minute. Is this the report with Beard on it?
Correct. That's right.
Oh, okay, that report. Now I remember that report. Yes,
And I apologize if I wasn't clear enough. But-
okay. I remember that report. Yes.
And in that report, for instance, there was a discussion about the number of vehicles that had pulled up to pick up Tupac, and one of the vehicles that was there was a Cadillac that was white with 4 black males in it. Do you recall that?
Correct.
Okay. So the way we're looking at it right now is Tupac comes out of the Luxor, he gets picked up in a long caravan of cars, and the last car is a white Cadillac with 4 black males in it. Right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's based upon your investigation.
Correct.
Now, in addition to that, we talked a little bit about the pen registers. Can you explain to the jury what a pen register is?
Pen register isn't the same as a pen register is more or less you're getting a number and you're more or less recording those numbers. It's not quite the same as you're recording phone calls and listening to them, where in that particular case you actually have people in a room and they're actually listening to calls, and if the call is not pertaining to your investigation, you're supposed to turn it off and not listen to it. It's something that's not pertaining to it. And that a pen register is more or less information to record calls it's a tool to assist you in your investigation if it turns out to be something that's valuable. That was the intent.
Right.
When we did the pen register, we never got to do it because we did the pen register. You have to file it with the county, and lo and behold, the next day it was in the newspaper. So basically, it was a waste of time.
Well, I mean, for instance, the pen register would be you would target someone's phone number, right? And so
Correct. That was the intent.
And the pen register would record the numbers that were either going to that phone number or that phone number making phone calls out of that to other phones.
That was the intent.
Now, in this case, can you tell us, for instance, what Keefe D's phone number was at that particular time?
I couldn't tell you. No.
And with regards to the phone records that we had received, there were some numbers that were either from the Monte Carlo, and I don't know if it was from the Luxor, but do any of those phone numbers register back to a pager? Because this is 1996, right? So it's got to be a pager or maybe, I don't know. I don't know what was around 1996 besides the pager.
I believe those phone numbers were actually the phone numbers to the hotels themselves.
Right. And so outside of that, we don't have any fact that Keefe D's pager or phone number was either dialed to or received in from either the Luxor or the Monte Carlo, is what's been shared here today, right?
Not on those calls, sir.
Now, in addition to that, you had mentioned as well the search warrants that occurred in Compton. Now, these search warrants that occurred, fair to say that they also they were doing these search warrants to try to retrieve firearms to help quell or to suppress any potential violence in Compton. Is that the reason or purpose for those search warrants?
I don't know what it was. Their search warrant. I can't tell you what the purpose, other than my understanding was there was an arrest warrant for Orlando Anderson. All that other stuff, that's Compton's thing.
Yeah.
It was their search warrant.
And in terms of that search warrant, did you ever see the results, or was Keefe D's house or residence in Compton searched as well?
I don't remember. I'd have to. The return had so much information on there. I'd have to sit there and look at it again. I just don't remember right off the top of my head if Keefe D's house was on that return or not.
No worries, sir. And in terms of your investigation, did you ever have to deal directly with Reggie Wright Jr.?
The only face-to-face, and it would have been brief, would have been at Compton when he brought Malcolm Greenidge in, but I don't think there was any talk. And the reason we probably didn't talk to him was because his dad was a lieutenant at Compton.
And what did that mean to you as to why you wouldn't talk to him because his dad was a lieutenant?
Right, wrong, or indifferent, our feeling was, well, if your dad's a Compton lieutenant and you're the head of Death Row Records security, I just have a problem with the communications line there. Maybe I'm being distrustful on that. I just worry about what's being said between the two parties.
Were you aware during the course of your investigation that Reggie Wright Jr. instructed his people to lie to you?
I was told later on by Frank Alexander that he said that, yes.
In addition to that, we had talked a little bit about the video footage that was captured at the MGM. Did you at any point when you looked at that video footage observe or see Duane Davis, Keefe D in that surveillance video?
No.
And then finally, your recollection is, so you wake up in the morning, you get the call, you arrive on scene, and when you get there, you had said, and this might be an old Nevada saying, but everyone skedaddled before I got there. You remember saying something like that? Did you, during that time period, ever observe a white Cadillac sitting there waiting for somebody inside to talk to either yourself or any other police officers about what happened at the scene?
No.
And then finally, you had mentioned a little bit about Suge Knight, and you had said that you believed that he was timid or afraid when he showed up with 3 attorneys to talk to you.
Yeah, I think he was rather timid, yes.
Sure. And it would be fair to say, of course, that you don't know why he was timid, right? I mean, he's walking in with 3 attorneys. I mean, is he worried that he's going to get caught doing something wrong, or is he there because he's worried about something else? You don't know, right?
I don't know why he was. It's just I'm sitting there thinking, one, why the victim showing up with 3 attorneys? That was just an odd thing to me.
Right. Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Any redirect, Mr. DeJacqueline? Okay. Of course.
All right, Detective. I'm going to jump in here just a little bit with you. Hold on one second while I get ready so that we can share some screens here. And of course, now I can't get that thing to come up so I can share the screen because this is in the way. Where the hell is my Zoom? There it is. I found it. Here we go. I'm going to start with an aerial that's been admitted as State's Exhibit number 1. I'm going to put it up big for you here. Can you see that?
Just a minute. Okay, yeah, now I do.
So, your understanding is that Suge and the entourage were coming down this way, westbound on Flamingo towards the 662 Club.
Yeah, Flamingo towards Cobol, yes.
And after the shooting, what's your understanding as to what Mr. Suge...
Did you say westbound or eastbound?
I'm sorry, they
I'm
were
sorry.
heading eastbound towards the 662, correct?
Correct.
What's your understanding as to what Suge and the majority of that entourage do after the shooting?
My understanding is once the shooting happened, they made a U-turn, went westbound on Flamingo, southbound on the boulevard, Las Vegas Boulevard, and came to a stop. If that red dot is at Las Vegas Boulevard and Harmon, that's where they came to a stop.
And it wasn't just Mr. Knight's vehicle that was stopped at that location. There were a number of other cars that were part of that entourage that remained at the scene for photographing. Is that correct?
My understanding, because obviously Frank Alexander and the other 3 gentlemen were there, so their car must have been there. If Kevin Woods got talked to, and I think there was somebody else. So I'm guessing their car was there. If there were other cars there, no one said anything about it. So I don't know how many. I remember the car that Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur were in was there in the intersection.
Right. And two of the wheels have been blown out from hitting a curb.
The rims were banged up from going over the median there in the middle of the Flamingo.
So, and then the entire crime scene would have been taped off by initial patrol officers, correct?
Yeah, I remember the street was pretty well taped off from what I recall.
And when they put crime scene tape up, they put crime scene tape up around the entire area they're trying to protect. Whether or not the people that were in those vehicles stayed at that location, there are more than one vehicle that's taped off in this scene. Would you agree with that?
They should be. They should be taping off a wider area than a smaller area. It's easier to come in than to go out.
So this is going to make me kick me back in and out every time, but let's go through this.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you're going to tape off an area, you'd rather make it bigger than start smaller, because it's easier to start bigger and close it than to start small and make it wider, because once you've made it small, you got looky-loos, everybody coming in, and it's tough to get people out then.
So now I'm going to share this photograph. That's the rear of Mr. Shakur and Suge Knight's vehicle, or at least appears to be, correct?
This is at the scene, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I see the tape in the distance. Okay. And then,
that's exhibit number 6.
okay. Is this on the boulevard?
I believe the testimony is that this vehicle is Las Vegas Boulevard in Harmon.
Okay, I see the black and white up ahead just because I see the reflective from the door.
So I'm going to go through exhibit number.
What's that white car?
Well, we're going to go through all of these for you
Okay,
in just a second. Of course, I got to do this the hard way. So now I'm going to show you number 20. Give me a second. I don't know why this thing won't roll up for me when it's photographs. There's obviously a different black BMW that's inside. If you look real close on the right side, the crime scene.
Okay. Okay.
There is 22. Oh, I'm going to click out of this.
I'm guessing that license plate number is on the report, so.
You just click through. That's 23. Now we're looking at 24. Share my screen. There's a black Lexus within the crime scene tape.
Okay.
Stop sharing.
So all those cars that are in that line to the side is just regular traffic being going by, I take it.
Then within the tape, this is State's Exhibit number 24. There's a silverish Mercedes.
Okay. So is Kevin Woods is probably in at least one of these.
And then 26. There, 26. Also in the tape, there's white. I think if you zoom in really close down here, which I don't know if I can do on here. But
Yeah.
oh, I can do this. There you go.
And it's probably the license. Oh, it's a
Dodge Avenger.
Dodge Avenger. Okay, and the license plate number. Because I remember on the original crime report, there are license plate numbers on vehicles, and I'd have to look at it to see what they match up to.
And then Mr. Sampt asked you questions about going to the Luxor.
Okay.
You recall those questions?
Yes.
Would it refresh your memory as to exactly what you found out at the Luxor to review that report that you generated?
Uh-huh.
Okay. There we go. Why is it not coming up? Stop. Share this one more time. Let's see if this works. There we go. All right. All right, here we go.
Right, Brian Beard, yeah. Okay.
So the beginning is just sort of a little paragraph that you wrote about what the investigation is about.
That's just a very brief synopsis about what happened the night of the shooting, yes.
Now, you indicated you talked to Brian Beard, who was working security at the Luxor.
Correct.
At about 10 p.m., he saw Mr. Shakur with a large group of people at the valet. Shakur and his group entered numerous vehicles and drove onto Las Vegas Boulevard around 10:30.
Right.
Beard recalls a black two-door Mercedes, a dark-colored Hummer, a two-tone van, and a black four-door Mercedes or BMW in the entourage.
Yeah, and the Hummer was supposed to be MC Hammer. I remember that.
Okay. And then you also talked to Angel Zavala.
Right.
He was working as well. His recollection of the vehicles were there was a white Dodge Caravan, a black BMW or Mercedes, and two other black vehicles. Two white vehicles were also behind the group. Zavala said he thought the last car was a Cadillac or Buick with four black males, was what he reported.
Right. That correct.
Thank you, Josh. I have nothing further.
Okay. Any requests?
Just real quick, Detective Becker, with regards to that last line, the last line is that the last white vehicle was either a Cadillac or a Buick, right? So the Cadillac was a white Cadillac.
Correct. That's the way that's worded, yes.
All right.
Either a white Cadillac or Buick, yes.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions for this witness? Seeing no hands, thank you. You are excused. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.